Hi everyone, welcome to All About Buffy, the epilogue. Before I get into the video intro, just a quick channel intro reminder. Like I said, I just really wanted to finish this series, and then I would kind of see what I do, since it's still just really difficult to film, and that is still true. So after this video there will not be any uploads for the foreseeable future. I'm gonna take some time to reflect and reassess and think about what I'm going to do with the channel. So yeah, just reminding you of that. Okay, but today is all about Buffy still. So in this epilogue, or epilogues, I'm going to be mainly answering some questions that have been asked by viewers over the course of the series. So I have those on my phone, and that's mainly what I'm going to talk about. I have like some general things that I still want to say, but I don't know if I will just kind of weave those in, or I'll finish with them. I don't know. So I, kind of, part of me thinks that I can do this in one video, but that's probably not true. It's probably not true. So in all likelihood, there will be 2 parts to this. Part of me hopes that I'm going to be able to do this all today. But we'll see about that. But that's kind of why I started out here, because it's sunny at the moment, but it's looking to rain later today. It's gonna rain all day tomorrow, so the cat will be inside, will be here. I'm hoping if I'm here then I can finish this this weekend. So that's why we're here, cozy on the couch, chilling for the epilogue. Okay, so now before I get started, just let me thank you all again for joining me on this journey. I never thought that so many of you would watch every episode fully until the end, and actually listen to what I was saying and not just watch it to relax and sleep. I never expected that. There's several of you that, so windy day, sorry. There are several of you that have even started watching the show because of these videos, because of me, which I think is so awesome. Yeah, it's been really fun. It's had a really good time creating this series and interacting with all of you about Buffy, and so thank So in that vein, let me take you back to the request that started this all. Okay, so the request that started it all came on my most recent Buffy merch show and tell, where I showed the vampire box and its contents. And a user named Shadow of Lotus requested a video about Buffy, about the series, about the show, and the episodes, the characters, all that. And so I replied to them and I asked, do you mean one video talking about all of my favorite episodes, or do you mean several videos, each going in depth into an episode or season? Because I was already here, hours later. And they answered that they were happy to hear back from me, and they thought about it, and they thought they said, I would also be very interested in listening to you talk about character profiles of the main characters. As to the review recaps, I really don't know what you would prefer. I think perhaps it would be cool to hear about seasons as a whole with extra content on your fave episodes. I also think that would be a lot of content, and it's really up to you what would be more fun for you. But I'll watch every video. Have a wonderful day. And a little drawn out rose with symbols. So that's what led us here. So again, I got a request. Okay, I didn't make it up, and the request said that they would be interested in, all the seasons with extra content on my favorite episodes and character profiles of the main characters. So that already asked for a lot of content. Did I still let it get a bit out of hand? Yes. But it was requested. So I just want to give a specific thank you to Shadow of Lotus for this request. This has been the most fun that I've had creating videos for this channel. It's been a bit challenging these last months, just being able to film, but because I love Buffy so much and I love these videos so much, it motivated me to still finish it. Honestly, I cannot imagine any other type of video motivating me to film under these circumstances. So thank you for the request. You unleashed a monster in the best way. In the best way. So I am curious if you were in fact able to watch every video. I would 100% understand if you weren't, but I am curious, so feel free to let me know. So that's kind of what got us here. And I have screenshots of the other questions that I wanted that I'm going to answer. And I'm just, let's just start by addressing the predator in the room. I got a question. So a lot of these use your real names and are not usernames. And they are public, technically, but I still don't know if you want me to say your name. So I'm not going to. But so I got a question by a viewer about Joss. And they mentioned a couple things that they themselves noticed in the show, especially in the later seasons. And, so Spike and his actions, and then Caleb, who is a creepy misogynist priest. And they say that they couldn't help but feel this is very reflective of the true personality and ego of Joss Whedon, which we later found out, was very, very problematic. And they ask, has the cancelling of Whedon impacted you from enjoying Buffy the Vampire Slayer, knowing the real monster wasn't a vampire or a demon, but a human being who brutalized women in real life under the guise of female empowerment? Okay, so I think that most people know, but for those of you that are completely unaware, in sort of recent years, it has been made public that Joss Whedon is a total creep. And he acted very inappropriately, to say the least, with many of the actresses on set and the actresses that he's worked with, probably women in general. And so, yeah, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. So we're kind of done with Joss. And I feel like I was pretty late to discovering this. Like, I've only known about it for like a year. That sort of news doesn't really make it over here. Reminder, I'm Belgian. I live in Belgium. I'm not American. And I don't keep up with media, and I'm not actively in the fandom anymore either. So it kind of found me, I think probably during like my latest rewatch. But if you remember, I started season 1 longer ago and then had a break and then watched the rest. So my latest rewatch, and I always go and check and read IMDb trivia. It's just a thing I do. And that's where I read it, and I was like, what? And that's when I looked up more information and started reading articles and all that. And so I already answered the question partially in a comment, and I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to say a couple more things about it. So, I did already want to say, after learning what we now know about Joss Whedon for me particularly, the feelings I always felt towards the character of Xander really clicked. Sure, stalker slash rapist Spike and the misogynist villainy of Caleb might also represent Whedon's true nature, but nice guy Xander paints a much clearer picture for me, especially since Whedon has always said in interviews that the character of Xander is partially based on his teenage self. I've always hated Xander. He is a sexist pig, and he has been from the very start. But his misogyny is subtle, more acceptable, funny, cute, even. So, Caleb and Spike are written as problematic and are dealt with. Caleb gets slayed and Spike gets a redemption arc, but Xander is just fine and dandy and everyone loves him even though he is hugely problematic. In the canon comic books, he even goes on to date Dawn. That is Whedon right there. So I guess it didn't really change the way I view the show. It just confirmed some things for me. But it does make me sad that there's a monster at the heart of my favorite show. So that's kind of how I see it. Because Whedon writes Spike as problematic. He writes Warren as like an evil, sexist asshole. He writes Caleb as a misogynist murderer, So, and in his head, he sees them as bad guys. Everyone sees them as bad guys, It's kind of like how all men will agree a rapist is a bad guy. That's kind of like clean cut. That's not the issue. The issue is Xander. Xander is the issue. Because Whedon himself, probably wrote Xander as a likable, lovely character, like a great guy, just awesome, right? How he sees himself. He might make an inappropriate comment now and then, some double entendre, some dirty joke, something like that, and think that is perfectly okay. And a lot of other people, especially men, would also think that is perfectly okay. And so it's the character of Xander, I feel, that exposes Whedon's nature. Because even after all of the actresses spoke up about the things that he said and done, there's a lot of people still defending him. Just like you will probably find a lot of people still defending the character of Xander. Like, thankfully, a lot of people in my comments are fully on board with the Xander slander and hate the guy. But I'm sure that a lot of people think that, I'm reaching and it's not that bad and all of that. And that's kind of why I think Xander is a much more representative character and situation of Joss's misogyny than, the later seasons with Spike's behavior and Warren and Caleb and all of that. That's how I see it, and so at one other point in the comments, someone asked me, who do you think is worse, Xander or Warren? And before I saw the comment and before I was able to answer, someone else answered and was like, that's a stupid question. Warren is worse. He's like literally psychotic. And though this is true, and I agree, because I cannot watch Warren, like his face makes me physically ill. Okay, and I can watch Xander. He's in every episode and I still really love the show, you know, and I can laugh at some of his lines and whatever. Yeah, so I hate Warren's character. Yeah. Like in a visceral way. Probably because he killed Tara, but it's fine. But I actually think Xander's character is a lot more harmful in the bigger picture because, like I said, Warren is truly awful, and you can line up 100 people of all genders and ask them, is Warren a good guy? And they will all say no, right? But if you line up 100 people of all genders and ask them, is Xander a good guy? There's going to be a lot of, well, yeah, he's a good guy, but you know, and that is the problem. Like, as long as this type of man is not dealt with, fuck all is gonna change. Okay? We have been locking up psychopaths for a long time now, and it is still incredibly difficult out there to navigate the world as a female presenting person. And that's because the Xanders of the world get to walk free and just have a grand old time. So who's worse, Xander or Warren? It's not that simple a question, because Warren's gonna be locked up, you know? Xander is just gonna leave a wake of traumatized women in his path. So there's that. I do want to take a second here to talk about, okay, so what do you do when you find out that the person behind this media you love is a horrible person? And we have had to deal with this a lot lately, which is good, because it's good that people are being held to a higher standard now, and that you don't just get away with everything just because you're rich and famous. It's good, but it's led to some like situation like, do I stop listening to this artist? Do I stop watching their movies? Do I stop, what do I do? And ultimately, I think that's a question that everyone has to answer for themselves. But what I do basically is I think about two things. First, I think about, very often in a piece of media, a lot of people are involved. So especially when you're talking about a TV show or a movie, so many people are involved. It's not just one person, and even if that person is so integral to the creation of this media, as Joss Whedon was, it's not just him. There's a whole writer's room. There's tons of people that make the show possible. There's all the actors, all the crew, just so many people in this. and Buffy belongs to them too. Buffy does not belong to Joss Whedon. Buffy belongs to all of them and all of us. And so it has changed some things. Like when I was younger, like Joss Whedon was a fucking god to me. Like, dude, Buffy, Firefly, Dollhouse, and then, you know, his work in the MCU, fucking god. And that, you know, no, I took him off of that pedestal, and I just don't think about him at all anymore, really. So it changed some things in how I think about the show, but it hasn't changed how much I love the show and how important the show is to me. Buffy is not Joss, okay? So that's one thing I think about. And the other thing, because you can't always do that, especially when it comes to music, also kind of when it comes to books, you know, then the artist very much so is like almost synonymous with the art. But then I feel that you just need to ask yourself the question, how important is this art to me? How important is this piece of media to me? You know, so for example, other example. Good. For example, Michael Jackson. My oldest sister, is a huge Michael Jackson fan, like huge. She has been for longer than I have been alive, because she dragged my mom to see Moonwalker in theaters when my mom was pregnant with me. She was actively trying to have my first words be Michael Jackson. When she was teaching me English, which I've talked about in another video, she would teach me all of the Michael Jackson lyrics, just all of them. So Michael Jackson, you know, so it's just her life. So to her, it's not really an option to cut that all out. It's so important to her. It's so meaningful to her, and it was such a molding factor in her life that she cannot let that go, no matter what. And I think that needs to be okay, you know. If something is that important to you, then I feel like you're allowed to separate the art from the artist. But like I said, in the case of Buffy, I don't even think you have to do that, because there's just so many people involved in this show that you can just continue to love it. You can cancel the man, but you cannot cancel the fandom. Yeah, there's so much more to say about that, but I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so sort of going on that, because I just described how important Michael Jackson was to my sister, let's talk about how important Buffy was to me. So I have a question from someone, and they asked what I was just wondering what drew you to the show and how or why you started collecting memorabilia. So, what drew me to the show is it was on TV. So I've been obsessed with watching TV and, shows and movies my whole life. There's reasons for this. One main reason is I have been an insomniac forever, and there's just not much to do. And I'm not a reader. So I just watch TV. And as I've mentioned here and there in a few videos, I don't like to make it a thing. I am neurodivergent, and TV helped me understand humans. So I consumed ridiculous amounts of TV, and I memorized situations. So just interactions. Yeah, I don't want to get into it, but so I just spent a lot of time in front of the TV, and I would just start watching every new show that started. And so I started watching Buffy just because it was on, and it was just done. Even the first season, which is arguably very bad, the way of speaking, the type of humor, the puns, the pace, just the wit and banter, it was a match. It was just a match. Like, yes. And there was no other show at the time with that type of humor. There were, in the 90s, just like a lot of really boring shows. A lot. Just like a lot. So many very boring shows. I'm sure there were good shows as well, but you have to remember, I live in Belgium. So we, in terms of, English language media, we were limited. There were like 4 or 5 channels that would air English spoken youthful media in the evenings, and a lot of it was just very, very boring, and not much was good. Like, what do I remember being good? British things, like Are You Being Served and Faulty Towers and things like that, I liked and could actually laugh with. Seinfeld, of course. But a lot was just very boring. So when Buffy came around, it was just like, yes. And I loved it. And then in season 2, they introduced Spike. I was fucking obsessed. Like, everyone has, a lot of young girls, teen girls, has that like one idol that they obsess over and make elaborate stories about in their heads about how they're going to run into them and they'll fall in love and marry and run away together and stuff like that. And James Marsters was that for me. Like, I was obsessed. And so it's kind of that obsession that led me to the internet, because I had all these feelings and thoughts and I wanted to share them with people, and no one else that I knew watched Buffy. So in Belgium, I had 0 friends that watched Buffy because no one speaks English well enough or something, at least at that time. So how old was I when it started airing here? So, counting. Like 12? I don't know. And so it's not funny subtitled. It's just not. So we don't have dubbed TV, thank fuck. So we have Dutch subtitles, and you cannot translate that wit. You cannot. So I don't know. No one else watched it. I didn't know a single person my age in Belgium that also watched Buffy. And so I took to the internet, and that's when I joined the fandom. Well, it's not like you join, you just get swallowed up into it. That's when I got swallowed up into the fandom, and the Buffy fandom was wild. And I've never been part of any other fandom. I've tried, but I couldn't get into it. So I don't have much comparison, but it was a good time. And the internet in those days was very different than it was now. It was just like small. It was small. And we had these message boards. Live journal was a big part of it as well. It's like everyone knew each other. It was just small. Like, because, well, obviously, so fan fiction was a thing. You can't be in fandom and not know about fan fiction. And it's like you had the biggest writers at the time, but they knew you. Like, I was on a first name basis with the biggest writers at the time, and I was no one. Like, I didn't write fan fiction. I didn't have a big following on LiveJournal. I didn't run the message board. I was just no one. I was just a rando in the fandom. Yet you knew them and interacted with them. Like, they would read my LiveJournal and comment on it. So it was just different. I feel like now in fandom, it's big. And it's disconnected, and there's like cliques, and you'll have cliques in fandom, but it's not like everyone just knows everyone. Do you know what I mean? It was just different. So yeah, it was, and that's kind of how it started. That's so you had Buffy, it was funny. Then you had Spike, I became obsessed. Then you had the internet, fandom, fan fiction, and it just spiraled. It spiraled fully out of control. Fully. I would walk, talk, breathe, eat Buffy 24/7, non-stop, all the time. All day, every day, all I had on my mind was Buffy. All the time. My journals, my diaries at the time, all I wrote about was Buffy. That was literally it. Just, oh, good times, good times. I would print out fan fiction. So when I had a computer in my room, but that is when I just gave up on sleep altogether, which was fine because I was already an insomniac and now I just didn't mind anymore. And so I would just stay up, read fan fiction till 4 a.m., sleep for 2 hours, wake up at 6 a.m., read some more fan fiction, go to school. But at the time, computers and the internet here in my house were very fickle and it would break all the time. But my parents did not see the urgency in that one bit. So they would drag their feet whenever something needed fixing. And so, like, I would go into withdrawal. And so, because there were like certain fan fictions, like I knew Cantaira always posted a chapter on a certain day of the week. Saber Shadowcat always posted a chapter of like a longer story on the same day of the week, and so I would be like, this has a new chapter by now. This has a new chapter by now. I can't. What am I gonna do? I am freaking out. I need this. So I would go to like internet cafes. Remember those internet cafes? I would look up the new chapters. I would print them out. I would read them in class. Because I was always doing shit in class. Like, nobody cared in my school. If your grades were good, you could do whatever the fuck you wanted to do. Nobody cared, you know, as long as you were quiet. Okay, so I was just quiet. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. And my grades were really good. So they just left me alone. So I would read fan fiction all day in class, and then I would throw the pages away at school because I did not want to take them home. Not that either of my parents could speak English that well, but certain words do not need translating. So I would read it in class and throw it out in school. Oh God. Those were the days. It was a good time. Good times. So yeah, and the memorabilia just came with that. I wouldn't say that I collected it ever. I don't have much. I still don't have much. By the time that I had the money to buy things, the fandom had died down, and you know, I wasn't as obsessed anymore either. So I would still buy things if it's like useful. So I have some Buffy clothes. have some notebooks. I have like a zipper pouch, things like that. I would buy, but I wouldn't say that I ever really collected it or anything. A lot of it was given to me as well. I have a coaster, a spike coaster that a friend gave to me, and the necklace, I'm really quite sure that someone gave that to me as well. I have this huge poster of Spike on my bedroom wall above my bed. I have like a slanting ceiling, and there it was for the longest time. Like, it's ridiculous. I couldn't take it down. I couldn't take it down even when I was way too old to have it up. And I remember finding that, because here you could not find anything. Like, occasionally in one of those teen magazines there would be like a little article about him, but you could not find a poster anywhere. And shopping online wasn't really a thing yet back then. Like, no one here even had a credit card. Credit cards weren't a thing here, so it wasn't until the early days of shopping online that people started getting credit cards here, but no one I knew had one. No way that my parents would have helped me pay for it, and shipping was really expensive at the time as well, so there was just no way. So when I went to London with my mom to meet Melissa, who I've talked about before, who is one of my oldest friends, and I met her through Buffy. I met her in a Ghost of the Robot chat room, which is James's band. And yeah, we met in a Ghost of the Robot chat room when we were both 13, so 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Yeah. And so she lived in the UK, and when I went to meet her for the first time, I went with my mom. We were in London, and I had looked up in the fandom where I would be able to find a Spike poster. And we went to this like obscure shop. I think it was like in Camden or something, like not where my mom would really want to go with me. And I went through all the posters. And when I saw it, it was like, and it didn't even cost that much. I had like mentally prepared to beg hard, but it didn't even cost that much. And yeah, we bought it. I was so careful with it the whole time on the way home, and it was just the best thing ever. Yeah, it's amazing. It was like green and blue, and he had a black t-shirt on, his hair slicked back, and just cheekbones that would just maybe that's why I like skinny men so much. You know, like the so skinny they look like they could just die at anytime because I want that. I just want that. And no other healthily built person has cheekbones like that. So they all have to be just emaciated to look like that. It could also be because I only like men when I think they're about to die. And on that bombshell, let's end this part here. I am aware that I only answered 2 real questions, but that is okay because the other ones are way shorter. So, and I've still got time left, so I'm going to check on the cat and try to finish this today. Put some product in my hair because it's drying. Okay. So curious how much of that I'm gonna have to cut out. Bye.